And good evening and welcome to this edition of Train Aficionado Live. I'm Jonathan Higgins, your host, and we are talking about a great topic that a lot of people ask me questions about. What are the best scanners for railfans? So today we're looking at the top 3 handheld scanners for railfans tonight. So buckle up, it's going to be a great show. We'll be answering your questions after the slideshow presentation. So make sure you have those ready as well. So really great show tonight. We're diving into the top 3 handheld scanners. So let's start off the presentation right now. So make sure you join myself at a couple of events coming up right here in the Cincinnati area. I will be taking part in the Cincinnati Museum Center's 1940s Day. That's right inside the Cincinnati Union Terminal, coming up on Saturday, August the 31st, from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. I will be at the Cincinnati Railroad Club's booth, where you can learn more details about the historic Cincinnati Union Terminal. There will be a mission to be able to get into the space, but it'll be a great time. There'll be all types of things celebrating the 1940s, from cars to people dressed up in the outfits of that time, and so much more. So I'm looking forward to meeting you at the Cincinnati Union Terminal, otherwise known as the Museum Center. So I'm pretty excited to be there at a meet and greet at their booth. So I'm looking forward to it. Also, coming up a little bit after that, we'll have a Railfan meetup, which will be at the Hamilton, Ohio, Saturday, September the 14th, 2025, 8 a.m. to noon at Butler Street. That's right in downtown Hamilton, Ohio. So hopefully you'll join us at one of these great events right in the Cincinnati area. If you're looking for more events, of course, you can join us at many of these events coming up in the next coming months. Make sure you check out our website, trainaficionado.com/events. Don't forget about our website. The blog has so much more now. Trainaficionado.com. We have blog posts about all things railfanning. Blog series about forgotten railroads, which highlights a lot of the abandoned, forgotten, and the history of railroads. We have trackside guides and so much more. And don't forget to follow us on social media, on Facebook, X, Instagram, and of course you're watching right now on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. So make sure you check out trainaficionado.com. Subscribe to our social media as well. So why have a scanner? Believe it or not, there's a whole bunch of railfans out there that are not having a scanner. So what are the benefits of having a scanner? So let's kind of go over it. So the highlights is learning, knowledge, and fun. So let's go over them. So learning, you're able to hear communication in between the train crew and the dispatcher, and it helps you to understand when the next train's coming. And also if there's anything going on along the line because of the knowledge, what you learn by hearing these radio transmissions over the radio. You can hear stuff that's going on along the main line, maybe in a small or large yard, and everywhere between. And yes, monitoring the railroads on a scanner is fun. Being able to hear their communications, learning about, what trains frequent a certain area. Of course, if you're located like I am just outside of Cincinnati, Ohio, I'm able to hear a lot of radio transmissions. If you're in a rural area, there may not be as much activity on the scanner, but it's still a very valuable tool, which we're going to go over tonight, some of the other things that you can use the scanner for, along with communications. There's other channels we can monitor, which you can hear when a train's coming close. So we'll talk about that in a moment. So what can you hear on the scanner? So communication, it gives us our C. Voice communication between the train operators and the dispatcher, which is definitely key. Defect detectors. It's a computer automated voice that's giving the train crew an indication if there's something going on with the train. So typically the train will pass a defect detector. It'll have a bunch of devices to be able to sense these things. And then once the end of train passes the defect detector, a radio transmission will come over the radio and then indicate if there's anything going on with the train, such as a axle or signal problem, hot bearing, hot wheel, dragging equipment, height, width, or shift of load is just some of those things. So what'll happen typically is you'll hear, CSX milepost 1234, no defects, no defects. And then it'll say maybe the number of axles, it'll say maybe 400 axles, and then say detector out. So the crew knows by hearing that, you will hear, they will know that there's no issues with the train. But if they hear something like such as dragging equipment, what the train crew will do is they'll stop the train where it's safe to do so. And the conductor will come off and check the train and figure out what's going on. So it's very much a defect detector is definitely a safety thing for the railroads. Now, not all railroads do the next thing, but some of them do. And that gives us letter E, which is engineer callouts. So a lot of times, you'll hear Z123 approaching Hamilton Depot, 1 north. So they'll do these callouts identifying mileposts or key locations along the line. So the engineer will do this throughout the line. So if there's any work crews, they know how close they are. Or if there's anybody, any other trains, they will know that another train's approaching them. So it's definitely really cool to be able to hear these engineer callouts. The great thing about it is we have to become familiar with the railroad lines that we are railfanning. So we know where Hamilton Depot is, or where such and such is, or where milepost 123.5 is. So definitely knowing your railroad line, and ways of doing that is to download a railroad timetable. That will show you, mileposts and key locations along the line. The last thing is we can monitor the head end train device, the rear, which is called the Fred, and then we can monitor the DPUs. Now, these are data being transmitted over the radio on UHF channels, which are listed on Radio Reference, and this will give you an indication of the train being close. It's a low-powered transmitter. So what it happens is you'll hear a beeping indication, beep, beep, every so often on that channel. So you will know a train's coming. Unfortunately, it doesn't indicate what direction, but at least you'll know that there's a train approaching. So if you're in one of these areas that it's very rural and there's not a lot of communication over the radio, and maybe this particular line, they don't do engine callouts, programming in those Fred channels or DPU channels or the head end channel may be helpful for being able to know, oh, train's coming. I better be ready with my camera. So, all great things. We've covered this before in previous Train Aficionado shows. So, I just wanted to give you a little bit of background before we go into the top 3 scanners. So, coming in at number 3, this is probably the most affordable. It's the Uniden Bearcat the Uniden Bearcat SR330. It comes in at $120. It has 500 channels. 10 banks, 50 channels per bank. It's analog only. It is very simple to program. It can be programmed via computer as well. It's a basic bank type of scanner. No alpha tags, pretty straightforward. Punch in a frequency, hit enter, you're done. Relatively easy and simple. And it has a robust memory of 500 channels. It'll be able to support all the railroad frequencies, aviation frequencies if you're into aviation, and of course, you know, those other channels with the head end, the rear end, and what such. So all good stuff there. So that's scanner number 3 in the countdown. Now, many of you that watch this program know that the 125 AT is a fan favorite, especially for this audience and for myself. So this comes in at number 2. A lot of similarities from the previous radio to this one, but there's some key takeaways. So let's review. So we've got 500 channels, 10 banks. That's a mistype. It's 50 channels per bank, not 500. 50 channels per bank. It's an analog receiver, does not do any digital. Key features. What it does is it'll do alpha tagging, PL tone. It'll do, I'm just trying to think of other things that are handy with it. But yeah, basically the alpha tag and the PL tone are the big things. The price of this scanner, a little bit more. You're looking at $130. So it is a little bit more expensive, but you're getting the alpha tag capability. You're getting PL tone. It's relatively simple to program. You can use computer software to program it. It's pretty easy. You go into the menu, you select the channel, you program in your alpha tag, you program in the frequency, and if there is a PL tone, for the most part with railroads, PL tone is not required. That's a private line that you would program in outside of the frequency, which eliminates any other communication that doesn't share that same private line. So those are the key takeaways with this radio. Of course, it's great for aviation. Like the other one, it's great for the railroads. It's great for NASCAR. It's great for maritime. It'll do any analog conventional communication. Now we come up to the Uniden Bearcat BCD 160DN. Now this is the latest and greatest scanner. So let's take a look at some of the features. So it's a more robust memory where it's 1,000 channels in the scanner. It has 10 banks, 100 channels per bank, so larger memory. So that means that if you're programming it the way I recommend, programming the 97 railroad channels lined up with the channel numbers, you can do this all in bank 1. So you press bank 1, you get all 97 because you're going to line up all 97 channels with the corresponding channel numbers. The other big takeaway is it supports analog and digital conventional communication. So analog and digital DMR and NXDN conventional. Eventually the railroads, when they do go to digital, they will go to NXDN. That is the chosen digital format for the railroads. Some short line railroads, some yards, and a couple other lines are using NXDN. As for the big railroads right now, their road channels and dispatch channels are still analog. Eventually, when they decide to turn the switch to go to NXDN, everyone will have to do it together because a lot of times that road that may be shared by CSX or Norfolk Southern or Amtrak, there's other users, maybe some commuter rail on there. So they all need to make the switch so all their radios are capable and ready to go to communicate with the other trains on the line and, of course, the dispatcher. Just like the 125 AT, the the 160DN has a robust, and I mean a robust, key features. So it has text tagging like the 125, PL tone. The biggest thing is digital. That NXDN is big for railroads. It's programmable by computer software. The other thing that's cool about this radio, and if you're a fan of the 125/18, you really wish, geez, I wish I could name the banks. You can name the banks on the 160DN. The other thing is it's got a more robust, and I mean robust, service search feature, which is really nice. So it's laid out, broken out, which is really nice. So if you want to monitor certain bands of the ham radio band, or you want to monitor just the 97 channels versus the split channels or the designated DMR channels, not DMR, NXDN channels, you can break it out and turn it on and off. So some cool stuff here. So definitely keep that in mind. Looks like Metrolink in Toledo is going full digital radio, so it is coming to various areas. So that's pretty cool. Brian mentions that in the chat. This radio, because it does have digital capabilities, it is a larger price tag. You're looking at about $250. So it's not as cheap as the other two radios because it has digital capability. The reason being is, of course, Uniden has to pay license fees for DMR and NXDN. Also, it requires a little bit more technology in the radio to be able to decode the digital communications. So it requires a little bit more technology. That's why this radio is about $250 versus the 125 AT, which is $130, and then the SR 30 being at $100 or $120. So we've got price differences that kind of graduate up, but this would be my number one recommendation for somebody getting into rail fanning. You probably want to lean towards this radio. Just as Brian said, in Toledo, eventually they're going to a digital system. Hopefully it's more than likely NXDN or DMR, and you'll be able to monitor it with this particular radio. So this is kind of future-proofing you for when and if digital comes along the pipeline. So these are other key features that are a part of the 125 AT and the 160DN. Now I wanted to kind of dive into this a little bit more so you can have an understanding of it. So text tagging is big. Being able to see, one, the frequency on the screen, and two, being able to see a text tag. So I can put in on my radio, I can put in the frequency 160.9200, and I could put, Amtrak road. Like, let's say if I was monitoring the Northeast Corridor in Boston down to Providence, Rhode Island, that's the frequency I would program in, and I could put that as the alpha tag. So I know that particular channel, I'm going to hear the Northeast Corridor. Another big takeaway at number 2 for these two radios is the ability to do squelch tones. C, T, C, SS, and D, C, S. So if you're monitoring some channels that have PL tones, you're able to have access to the 50, C, T, C, SS, and then 104 of the D, C, S. For the most part, for rail fans, you're not going to really need this, but the radio does have the capability. Let's take a look at number 3. So this is a big thing. Power options, where we've got many. So this scanner, you can power it with AA rechargeable batteries, AA alkaline batteries, or you can use the USB cable that comes with a radio. So if you're using this in the vehicle, you can get a cigarette lighter adapter with a USB connection there, or some vehicles actually have USB ports now in the vehicle. So you could use that to power the scanner when you're in the vehicle. When you're at home, you can get one of those wall warts that has the USB, no different than what your cell phones have. You know, the little wall warts, I'm sure a lot of people have a whole bunch of those kicking around from various phones. That can be used as well. You plug that into the wall, use the programming cable or USB cable, plug that into the wall, plug that into the scanner, and then away you go. So that's great. And then the other way you can power it, which is not listed there, is to use one of these rechargeable bricks. A lot of times you use this with your smartphone. You plug that in, it'll power up your battery. You could also use it to power your scanner as a last resort. So let's say you've exhausted all your batteries, there's no way to plug in. You take that programming cable, plug it into that little power brick, and then it'll run off that particular power from there. So the two radios, actually all three during tonight's presentation, are all PC programmable. What does that all mean? So Uniden does have free software that you can use, but if you look at something like BuTel or ProScan, you can actually access the radio reference database if you're a paid member. So BuTel software, you can do that, and of course FreeScan. So this allows you to import the frequencies in from radio reference. If you're not in the budget for doing, paid software, Uniden does have a free software. It's very basic, but if you're only programming a handful of frequencies, it may be better than actually manually doing it through the keypad. So PC programmable, definitely really big for Railfans. Unfortunately, it does not work on Mac unless you're using some sort of software like Parallels to be able to, make your Mac so it runs on a Windows OS. But yeah, it's unfortunately the scanner hobby is very Windows based. It's not Mac friendly. So here's our top three. Number one is the BCD 160DN. Number two is the BC125AT. And number three is the SR330C. They're pretty much ranked by features and capability. Of course, number one, number two, and number three. Of course, number one being the most expensive, number two being the middle of the road, and then number three just right behind it. So, of course, more bells and whistles means that there's going to be more costs associated with them. But these are our top three. 125AT is definitely a favorite of mine. It's my go-to. I do have the 160DN, which I'm using primarily all the time. But I do use the 125AT as well. So we just want to quickly remind you, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. If you're watching Train Aficionado Live because you stumbled across this video, make sure you subscribe and do that now. We would greatly appreciate it. So it's time for your questions. So definitely put those questions in the comments right now. I'll be happy to read through those and answer any questions that you may have related to our program tonight or anything that comes up railfanning wise. So tonight's presentation was the top 3 handheld scanners for Railfans. So what an interesting broadcast. Tonight we kind of went over the top 3. They're Uniden radios. Unfortunately, Whistler hasn't came out with anything new. And keep in mind that these are the top 3 current scanners that are available to you. So Whistler doesn't have anything new. I haven't heard anything at this point. So it's very Uniden heavy. And I will testify that I do have, these radios. I do own it. This is the 160DN. And then I have the 125AT, which is right here. So you notice something that I always mention, carrying cases. I always put a carrying case on my radio. I want to protect it. I also like that the belt clip is more rugged than the belt clip that comes with the radio. So I strongly recommend, doing one of these carrying cases. You can purchase these from Scanner Master. These cases definitely are very affordable, well worth the money, so we greatly appreciate that. Let's take a look at antennas, since we've got a little bit of time here. So this here is the Smiley antenna. This is tuned to the railroad frequencies, right centered on the 160 megahertz. So this scanner antenna works phenomenally well on the railroad. So I would highly recommend it. It goes for a little over 20 some odd dollars. And Smiley Antenna is a company that manufactures these antennas right here in the United States. They're great. I've ordered several antennas, and I kid you not, I can show you that I've ordered several. I got one right here in the package. And it comes with, of course, a BNC connection. But if you're using, like Chris Schultz is watching the program tonight, he uses his SDS 100 for rail fanning as well as monitoring public safety. He actually has one of these antennas with the SMA connector, and it does fit on the SDS with that lip. So all these scanners are the top three. Pretty much any scanner that has VHF capability in the 160 megahertz will work for the railroads. Taking a look at another antenna. This is an antenna that Scanner Master carries. This is basically a VHF professional antenna, covers the 150 and 160 megahertz. This antenna works okay, but the Smiley antenna works better because it's centered on the 160 megahertz, where this antenna is centered more at 157 megahertz, I think, off the top of my head. So this one it works okay, but that one works even better. And there are some videos and blogs about the Smiley antenna, so definitely check the Train Aficionado website. Let's see if I can post this. There we go. All right, let's take a look at Steven's question here. With the 160DN, other than the alpha tag, is there any disadvantage to using this as a default railroad service search? Using a default of railroad service search. So what I normally do, Steven, and I'm going to recommend that you probably do the same, is the way I program the radio is by using the channel lineup. So, for example, the railroad channels have all 97 railroad channels, which I'll show you in a moment right on the screen here. So let me just come out of that, and I'm going to go to trainaficionado.com and actually show you. I'm going to share my screen right now. So we're at trainaficionado.com. So I'm going to put AAR, which is what is it? I can't remember what the acronym is for. Hold on one second. We'll see it on the screen. So it's the Association of American Railroads. So let me click on this. So when you do that search for AAR, you can go to the website here. It'll load the page that I've created with those channels. So you notice here that there's 1 through 97. So here we got all the channels 1 through 97. They're all listed here. What I recommend doing is programming in channel 1, AAR channel 1, AR channel 2, and channel 2, and so forth and so on. So the great thing about programming the radio like this is you can run bank 1 on a 160DN in a service search. So basically it's searching all 97 channels. The other great thing about it is if you're locked in on channel 22, listening to the road channel, dispatcher comes over the radio talking to a crew and saying, hey, can you switch over to channel 56? Now, rather than scrolling through all these channels, you can hit on your scanner. You're just going to hit hold 56, hold. Brings you right to channel 56. So you basically have aligned your radio in the same way it's set up for the for the channels that the railroads use. So that's what I recommend. So you can use the service search on the 160DN, but I would strongly recommend programming in the first 97 channels in the first 97 in the railroad. Now, with the 160DN, it's one bank, 100 channels, 97 of them. So that means that you can set up the other banks however way you want. Maybe you're going to have local railroad channels for each area that you railfan and each individual bank, which I would recommend. So if you're going out to Altoona, let's say that's in Bank 4, you put on Bank 4. Let's say you're going up to Boston, rail fanning, the commuter rail and such. You've got the commuter rail channels all in Bank 5. You're going out to the Chicago area. Maybe you program all those channels into Bank 6. So, having the ability to do that is certainly huge and helpful. But the first bank, or two banks if you're using the 125 AT and the 30, I would program in the first 97 channels. So then, if they say randomly to go to channel 56, you can just hit hold 56, hold, and you're right there. And then, of course, you can scan it just like a service search, no different. So I would highly recommend, putting a little bit more energy and a little bit more work into doing that, and then you've got the ability to just hit the channel number and go there. So hopefully that answers your question regarding that. Any other questions that anybody has? There we go. Any other questions that anybody has for me tonight regarding scanners? Chris Schultz mentions he has antennas for his 160. He has questions for his SDS 100 and 200. He does have the SMA version of the antenna for his SDS, which works great. I actually bought one of those, so in case I ever use the SDS out rail fanning, I can use the SMA version of that antenna. Dale Osborne is watching tonight. Brian, we've actually talked about your stuff in there. Let's Go Rail Fanning is in the house. And Lincoln is here. Union Pacific 1943 is here. So welcome to all of you that are watching the program tonight. And Paul was checking in early. He says, looking forward to another great episode, which thank you so much for your kind comments. If you have any additional questions, feel free to ask them now. I'm going to do a couple of slides, and then we'll return back to check to see if you guys have anything else that you want to talk about before we wrap it up. So tonight's program, we talked about the top 3 handheld scanners for rail fanning. Now, these are the current ones that are out right now. So these are current models. As I mentioned, other scanners out there will serve the purpose. But these are radios, if you're looking to purchase one and not break the bank, these scanners will do the trick. So make sure you check out trainaficionado.com. You can check out our blog posts, everything rail fanning. You can also check out our blog series, which is called Forgotten Railroads, which is all the history of railroad lines and buildings and things like that. We have trackside guides for, of course, Altoona, Pennsylvania, Charlotte, North Carolina, and of course here in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I'll be working on some more trackside guides soon. So there's all types of things that you can use there to be able to be a resource if you're going out there to railfan, and so much more. Make sure you follow us on social media as well, Facebook, X, and Instagram. And while you're here, hit that subscribe button. That would be great to be able to follow any of the shows that we post here. Whether it's live or produced, you'll get notifications. So make sure you ring the bell for the notifications. Just as a reminder, I got a couple events coming up that I'll be at. I'll be doing a meet and greet at the 1940s Day at the Cincinnati Museum Center, which is the Cincinnati Union Terminal. I will be at the Cincinnati Railroad Club's booth from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. It's going to be an awesome day there. We're highlighting everything from the 1940s, from the music to cars to people dressing up. There'll be all types of vendors, a great event, some of which of the action does require admission to the museum, so definitely keep that in mind. There'll be some stuff that I'm sure that'll be free if you roll up there. And then, coming up in September, Saturday the 14th of 2020. Boy, I got the wrong date on there. 2024, which I have to update that. I will be at the Butler Street, Hamilton, Ohio. I'll be in downtown Hamilton, Ohio, which will be certainly a fun time there. So definitely keep that in mind. Make sure you check out trainaficionado.com/events for more events. And of course, these are some photos from past events of people that have showed up. And of course, you know, when I went rail fanning up in Sandusky, Ohio, Watson manned the truck while I was out photographing trains, as you can see there. So our top 3 handheld scanners for rail fans. So definitely a great thing to keep in mind if you're looking to buy a new radio or you're looking to upgrade a scanner. So Stephen asks, have I had the ability to test the NXDN on the 160DN? Yes. Works great. In a railroad setting, I haven't really heard a lot of action on the railroads when it comes to NXDN. So I'm curious to see what that all sound like on a long distance route. But yeah, I mean, the NXDN and the DMR work great on this radio. So that's not any issues. So if you're having to monitor a railroad that has NXDN or DMR, you know, these two radio, the 160 and the 260, which is the base mobile model, will work great on the railroads. Well, I think I've answered all questions and covered all comments. So I think we'll wrap it up for this evening. As always, I want to thank you for watching. And make sure you subscribe to Train Aficionado on YouTube. And, of course, we'll be back next week with the scanner guys to round out the month of August. So thank you so much for joining us for tonight's program. We'll catch you again next week on the Scanner Guys. And then a whole new show, Train Aficionado Live, I'm sure, coming up in September. So be safe. We'll talk to you soon. And have fun out there rail fanning. We'll catch you again on this show and maybe trackside or at one of these events. So have a great night and be safe.